A lot of people have these limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time. And see, here's the thing I want you to realize that the reason the acronym for belief systems is BS is because 99.9% of them are. That's why you need that burning desire to push through that crap and push through fear. Or maybe you're comfortable. And, the comfort zone's a nice, warm place, but nothing freaking grows there, right? So you got to have that hunger to push through. So it starts with hunger.
Hey guys, welcome to the Breaking Resistance podcast show. Today we have an amazing guest. He needs no introduction. I'm pretty sure you have seen him all over your podcast. As a matter of fact, you probably just listened to him yesterday on some podcast show. Either he's doing the interviews or either he's being interviewed. So in this case, he's on our show and it's an absolute blessing. Thank you and welcome, Rod Clive. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, buddy. It's great to see you. John, great to see you again.
Rod,
Really
welcome,
looking forward to
welcome, my
having some
friend.
fun. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely, man. I echo Francisco. First of all, Rod, you need no introductions. Anybody who's doing anything in this business and commercial real estate, specifically multifamily, should know you. And if they don't know you, then they've been sleeping under a rock, or they just need to go read a book or get online or something. So,
Or just go lay down.
or just go lay down, or just go back to your 9-to-5 jobs. That's it. That's it. So
Well, thank you, brother. I would say the same about you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. But thank you very much for joining us. This is gonna be amazing. I'm personally very excited about this interview, and I have been excited about this interview because you and I, share a lot of similar background, but you have an incredible story that I would love to kind of start off and kick off with that as well. And so, without further ado, let's start with, like, obviously you're in this business now, but obviously you were not always in this business, and you were not always doing what you do today. What was little Rod like? Where did he grow up? How did he grow up?
Sure. So like you, I'm an immigrant. I'm actually an immigrant from Holland. I'm a half Palestinian, but we immigrated from Holland. My mother's Dutch. My father is Arabic, and immigrated when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. Ended up in Denver, Colorado. Really struggled initially. I remember eating expired food. We shopped at an expired food store. Believe it or not, they had that back then. We drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. I remember wearing clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I finally got disgusted and lied about my age when I was 14 to get a job at Burger King because I was tall, so I could have some money to buy my own clothes, and when I was 15, buy my own car. But, I'm sure, you've got listeners that had it harder than I did, and they're, with all the economic uncertainty and pain that's happening right now, probably maybe even have some harder right now. But back then I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so that we'd have enough money to eat. And she was an entrepreneur with her babysitting money, no formal education, but she invested in the stock market and IPOs successfully. And she invested in real estate. Well, her first real estate acquisition was a house right across the street from us when I was 14. She paid about 30 grand. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep, that it had gone up in value that much. And I was like, what? You made 20 grand? This is when 20 grand was a lot of money. This is 1977. Okay. And I'm like, you made 20 grand? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. They got smart now to be a broker. You have to have some experience, but I was a broker. I could have my own office. And of course I was still living at home. But my first year I made about 8 grand. My second year, maybe 10 grand. But my third year I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some pretty decent change. So, what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I was smart enough to go work for a broker. His name was Gino, and I was dating his daughter. And he taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. And, fast forward to today, I've owned 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term in 3 states. I own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And when that happens, God or the universe, whatever you believe, will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million conservatively in 2008. And So what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and at my boot camps and with my students is really the mindset it took to have that 50 million to lose in the first place, and maybe even more important, the mindset it took to recover from losing that. I remember people that jumped off buildings for losing less than that in the Great Depression proportionately, and even in the 08-09 crisis, people ended their lives over it. And so, it's all about mindset. And frankly, as we were talking before we started recording here, I believe we're headed for some pain in this country, some significant pain. A lot of my peers think it's not going to be that big a deal. I think it is. And so, mindset's going to be super important. So, happy to kind of drill down on some of those mindset related strategies if you'd like, or we can talk real estate or whatever you guys want. Yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah.
keep rolling with what you started already. So, you made 100 grand your third year working with a broker.
Hmm.
How did you go from that to multifamily? What was that transition between
Sure, sure, sure.
1981
Well,
and 2006?
yeah, so I bought a lot of houses. Okay, it took me a long time to get the memo that multifamily is better than single family, and so houses were just so easy for me, and so I just was able to build scale, and these were all
You bought
me.
them
I
for
mean, I had
rent?
huge
You bought them and rented them out?
long-term rentals, long-term rentals. Yeah, I held them
Okay.
all. I was not a flipper wholesaler. I flipped a handful, but mostly long-term rentals. And then I would buy an occasional Plex or an 8 unit or a 22 unit or a 10 unit. And that's how I slowly got into multifamily. But here's why I gave up the houses and stuck with multifamily, because it was the houses that pulled me down. In
Hmm.
2008 and 9, I had 800 houses, and I had several along the Gulf Coast of Florida here. And I had several apartment complexes, and it was the houses that killed me. And so let me explain why, because I get this question. And by the way, I was only at a 30% loan to value. I only owed 30 cents on the dollar, and I still crashed and burned. So people are like, "Guy,
Wow.
you were over leveraged." No, I was not over leveraged. So anyway, so my houses were 2 hours north of me, 2 hours south of me, and everywhere in between. And these were C class houses. So as you know, with assets, a C class asset's going to be older. It's going to have more maintenance costs because it's older, tougher demographic that's harder on it, that cause more maintenance as well. So the maintenance was a killer. You see, if I sent a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. So they can stockpile parts, plumbing parts, electrical parts, window locks, appliance stuff, plumbing fixtures. Yeah, all that stuff. You can stockpile it and they can be in and out in an hour. Well, if I had to send them to one of my 800 C class houses, might be an hour, hour and a half away, one way. They have to go see what's wrong. Then they have to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. And I don't know about you guys, but when Rod tries to fix something, he ends up going to Home Depot more than once because invariably I forgot something. But literally, what took an hour at one of my apartment complexes, or 1 or 2 hours, took all day at one of my 800 houses. So they didn't really cash flow that well. Plus, Florida has no state income tax, so property taxes are higher, and so is insurance. By the way, I had properties in wind and flood zones, which is kind of relative right now because I just got creamed by this hurricane. Luckily, no physical damage to me or my family. Well, they killed it south of us here, but I'm getting all new roofs. But anyway, so wind and flood insurance obviously is higher, so both of which impact cash flow. Higher taxes, higher insurance impacts cash flow. But it was the maintenance that really killed me. And if I mentioned this, higher property taxes, if I didn't mention that here as well. But then kind of the final straw, or the coup de grace, as it were, is I didn't pay attention to tenant demographics back then. I didn't even know. I probably couldn't even spell demographics. I just rented houses. If you had a good job and decent credit and paid a deposit, you could rent. Well, what I discovered after the fact was a lot of my tenants were contractors, jobbers, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and that all fell off a freaking cliff in 2008, 9, and even into 10. And so they just didn't have work and couldn't pay. And so, and I lost everything because in my infinite wisdom, I thought it'd be a great idea to cross collateralize packages of houses with my apartment complexes to save 50 basis points on the loan, 0.5% interest. And so the whole thing imploded.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
Wow.
that's how it all happened.
Yeah.
And
Well, Rod, I love how you get so granular into your when it comes to your properties. I can see the passion and it reflects into it in your conversation of how passionate you are about real estate. I want to just take a quick pause and go a little bit back from when you were making and you broke that first 100,000, because you talked about that mindset and psychology when you were working with your I would
uh-huh.
assume your
Yeah,
ex father-in-law.
right.
But what was that mindset when you started to actually invest into real estate? Because we have somebody in our audience, I'm sure, is struggling to pull the trigger. Now, for you to go and scale all the way to 800 single family homes, that's huge. But what was
Mhm.
that psychology and that mindset like when you were starting to get invested into real
What
estate once you were
I'm going to tell
broke?
you, it's the same all the way through. Okay. But so let me give you some of the strategies. It starts with really knowing what it is you want and why you want it. If you come to one of my boot camps, the first hour and a half is spent on goals. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what the heck you want, right? You got to know
Your
what you want
roadmap.
with
Yeah.
clarity. And you got to know why
Oh,
you want it. You've
absolutely.
got to create what you got to create what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. Okay. That hunger. And so, and why do you need that? Because you have to push through fear. Maybe you have to push through limiting beliefs. I'll give you an example, limiting beliefs. When I immigrated, I didn't speak English, discovered what bullies were for the first time. So I got my butt kicked on occasion. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in wooden shoes and those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. Got my butt kicked again. And then,
Yeah.
and then the bullies would chase me home because some lived at the end of the street and she'd chase them off with a fly swatter. Next day, ass kicking. So, it just, and so I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. In fact, I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? And so, and a lot of people have these limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. And see, here's the thing I want you to realize that the reason the acronym for belief systems is BS is because 99.9% of them are. That's why you need that burning desire to push through that crap and push through fear. Or maybe you're comfortable. And, the comfort zone's a nice, warm place, but nothing freaking grows there, right? So you got to have that hunger to push through. So it starts with hunger. The next piece is you've got to make a decision. Okay. And the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. A great extreme example would be if you're going to attack the island in battle, you're going to burn your ships because you're taking their ships home. That's a decision. It's not a one toe in, one toe out, one foot in kind of a thing. It's freaking done. So that's the key is you've got to make that decision. And then you're 100% committed. And if you're 100% committed, you're like a train on a track. If you're just interested, you get derailed, you get knocked off track. So it starts with that decision and that commitment. And then you got to take the first step. And for, a lot of our listeners and my podcast and yours as well, I'm sure are very analytical. They have to check off every single box before they make a move. But you got to take that first step, even when you can't see the whole path. Like Dr. Martin
Of
Luther King
course.
said, one of his quotes is, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. And it's like that with this business or really any business, frankly, is you don't have to see that whole staircase, but you've got to make a move. And the great analogy for this is you could drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights only seeing 50 feet in front of you. And you'll make it. You may have some obstacles and some setbacks, but other people have done it before. It's the same way with your goals. But you got to take that first step. And, in our business, I see with my students, it's the law of the first deal. And, I have a coaching program. They're called My Warriors. And I'm really proud of something. I've been teaching less than 5 years and they own upwards of 100,000 doors. And I'm really proud of that we know of. It's probably more than that. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is sometimes I'll hear them complaining. It's been 4 months, 6 months, 8 months. They haven't got a deal, even a year sometimes. And then next thing I know, they got one. The next thing after that, they've got like 3 or 4 going. It's that first deal. It's the scariest, it's the
Domino
hardest,
effect.
it takes the longest, it's the most stressful. But you got to take that first step. It's a critical piece.
Well, I mean,
So
they always say your first 100,000 is probably the hardest for you to achieve, and then
first
after
million,
that,
first 100,000.
first million, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. It's
Yep.
always that first deal, the first 100,000. That's always going to be the most
Yep.
challenging. But
First,
you pick a lot. You'll
real
get
money is always harder. It's
Yeah.
always the
Yeah.
hardest.
Yeah. Great.
First real money,
Yeah.
no matter what it is, whether it's 100,000, 1,000, 1,000,000, 10 million, whatever it is. That's always the hardest
yeah.
to get.
Yep. And it's the
Yeah.
scariest and the most stressful. Your first equity raise, is always scary. I even tighten up a little bit. We just did 19 million on an beautiful asset in Nashville. We closed on the week before last. Yeah, sure. And so it doesn't matter. And there's always another level as well. Okay. And so, you tighten up when that happens. But listen, I know if you're listening or watching this podcast, you're a leader. And right now, the world needs leaders more than ever. And as a leader, you really have to pay attention to your focus because whatever you focus on is going to get larger. And if you get sucked into the crap on the news, that's what's going to get bigger. So you almost have to stand guard at the door to your mind and bring in the good stuff, especially in what's coming. Because it's my belief, I don't know when this will air, but we're about to have the midterms. It's my belief that, there's a big influence, political influence on the media from the left. And this not, we won't go down that political rabbit hole, but that's reality. And then, I think there's going to be a shift politically with these elections. And if that happens, I think the news is going to get really ugly after the midterms. And so, I think they're going to do everything they can to make the right look terrible, and whatever. And again, we don't have to go. Please, let's not go down that rabbit hole. But the point is, I really believe that's going to happen. And as a result of that, perception is reality. So I think fear will be really prevalent. And so, as a entrepreneur or an operator or someone that wants to get into this business, your focus is so freaking important. Because again, whatever you focus on gets larger. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war, and she said, "No, I'm pro-peace." Almost the same thing, but you see what I'm saying? I get people that call me and say, "How do I get out of student loan debt?" And I say, "Wrong question. How do you make so much freaking money that debt's irrelevant," right? Because again, whatever you focus on gets bigger. So your focus is super important. And I think the most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus. I was telling you guys, my podcast just broke 14 million downloads, which I'm very proud of. But, I listen to 2 podcasts. One of them is Tim Ferriss. The other one is Joe Rogan. So I get both sides of the aisle. And Tim Ferriss, he interviews the best of the best in their different walks of life. Best athletes, Michael Phelps, NFL, NBA players, best actors, Ed Norton, Jamie Foxx, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hugh Jackman. Billionaires like Ray Dalio, heads of CEO like he's had Zuckerberg on. The biggest companies in the world. And I started to hear a pattern. And I thought, holy cow, a lot of them meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? So focus is a really big piece. Anyway, I could keep going, but there's more strategy here. You're dropping
a lot of golden nuggets for everybody.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you, man. I agree. And Francisco, how did Rod get our guest list for the next few weeks? All these celebrities that we're going to have in the next few weeks.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
Better get with it, Francisco. All right. Quit screwing around, man. Rod Schmod, you can do a lot better than Rod, brother. Come on. Yeah.
I love the mindset issue. I love the mindset issue in terms of specifically in today's environment, because as you said, Rod, and I completely agree with you. I think we're heading towards times where mindset is going to be essential to get us through the next few months, the next year, the next 2 years, because when there's blood on the ground, there's money to be made, but you can only make that money if you have the right mindset. And so
you don't get sucked into the fear, because the fear.
Oh, absolutely. You can either stand still or retract. In either scenario, you're not going to be on the winning side. So either standing still or retracting is not on the winning side. It is what it is, but
And I will tell you, there's some big hitters that are saying it's going to be ugly. So we'll see. I like to kind of poke the bear a little bit from time to time, but I pulled some headlines that kind of astounded me. I don't know if you're aware, there are 20 million families in this country behind on their utility bills. I was like, holy cow, 20 million families. When I lost everything in 2008 and 2009, I built a litigation support company with law firms in 5 states to help people save their homes. I've saved thousands of homes. I hated the business because nobody's happy when they're losing their home. I sold it a few years ago. It was a $10 million company with 60 employees. And the guy that bought it from me, we had lunch 2 weeks ago, and he told me there is a tsunami of foreclosures coming too, because they had that foreclosure moratorium. So they stopped foreclosures just like they did the rents. But the foreclosures are, they take a while to churn up, and they're starting up again. And he says it's like crazy. So, I don't want to scare you if you're listening to this. I want you to get excited, because with crisis comes opportunity. But again, 100%. You can't get sucked into the fear. And so, if there were ever a time to figure out what vehicle you're going to use to capitalize on this, it's right freaking now. Okay. If you're going to do multifamily, I'll mention I've got a virtual boot camp coming up. It's $97. I don't sell anything there. I just had it 2 weeks ago. There were 700 people that paid to attend, and I'm going to do it again the end of January. But I don't care if it's with me, but you need to pick your vehicle right now. If it's going to be single family, multifamily, other asset classes, industrial, retail, whatever it is, buying businesses, trading the stock market, and get yourself trained immediately.
Yeah.
Because once we're in the thick of it, it's going to be too late. You've got to build the relationships. You've got to understand the business. Do you mind if I make a quick plug for that boot camp?
Of course, man.
Go ahead.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
go for it.
It's January 21st and 22nd. Again, I don't sell anything there. It's 16 to 18 hours of training. You can come for $97, nothing being sold. It's kind of a duh if you're interested in multifamily. Okay. And,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
mean,
not like
and
I'm teasing you stuff. It's drinking through a freaking fire hose. Okay.
I'll go a
Um,
step further. Just so this is evergreen information. Anytime you're listening to this, go check out Rod's. And by the way,
Here's the link.
what's more relevant, Rod? What's your website? What is
Yeah.
how would people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the website is the best one is probably rodslinks.com because that's my link tree and it's got the bootcamp site there. The other reason I want to mention rodslinks.com is at the bottom, even if you don't want to learn multifamily from me, I do a goal setting workshop every New Year's Day. I did it New Year's Day this year and I've done it for the last few years. And, you know, go do it. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. There's a guide you can download. Go do that workshop. It's professionally done in my studio here with music. Here's the sad reality. And you guys know this. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. So do that. Now, if you're driving, if you text my name, Rod, to 72345, we'll send you the website. But again, if the price will go up to, 400 or maybe even more than that. If it's gone up, just let me know you heard me on their podcast here, John and Francisco's, and just DM me on any social channel, and I'll make sure you get the code to come for the 97. But yeah, I mean, it's every aspect of this business, soup to nuts, for 16 hours, and it's a lot of fun. And if you go to the website is multifamilybootcamp.com. If you go to the bottom, you will literally see hundreds of unsolicited testimonials, people raving about the event.
Yeah,
But another
yeah.
thing I want to mention is in this business, the multifamily business, John, you and I both know it's a team sport. And, you're not going to build something huge on your own. It's very unusual. I've met one guy that did it out of the hundreds that I've interviewed. And, it's a team sport. And the piece I want to tell you here is you want to play to your strengths. Okay. Because, in our business, you guys know, there's finding the deals. So there's somebody that develops a broker relationship, somebody does investor relations, maybe somebody that's analytical, that loves the spreadsheets, that does that piece. You can wear multiple hats here, but very often, there'll be several people doing this, or a couple at least. And there's somebody that maybe has some project management or construction or management experience in general that does the asset management after the fact. So there's a lot of different hats you can wear, but you got to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. Align, hire, or partner for your weaknesses.
Oh,
Because when you love
absolutely.
what you do, work is play, right? And it's why my wife puts up with me working Sundays sometimes. And so, when you love what you do, you never work another day in your life. And so I would encourage you to play to your strengths, because if you're playing to your strengths, you're going to love it. Number one, you're going to be good at it. Number two, but you'll also be passionate about it. And to influence people, you need passion. And so again, if you're loving what you're doing, you partner with somebody who's loving what they do, you'll be able to influence people to sell to you, to invest with you, and so on and so forth.
Oh,
So I want to
100%. And
mention
you
that.
only have that,
100%.
you only have that passion if it's one of those counterintuitive things, or maybe it is intuitive. But if you play to your strength, and if you play to organize a team that makes your strength even better, you'll enjoy your passions more. So you will enjoy that part of your structure more. You're part of your company, part of your growth, part of your journey. All of that will be compounded once you're doing what you love, and you've surrounded yourself with people that also, work with you on your vision and share your
And
vision
doing what they love.
equally.
When you
And doing
can
what they
do
love.
that,
Yeah, and doing what they love.
success is inevitable.
Absolutely.
One of the most common partnerships that I see interviewing, multifamily operators is an analytical person with an outgoing person. I mean, that's a match made in heaven in our business. And so I see that a lot. But, when you're playing in your strengths, first of all, it breeds creativity, breeds innovation, minimizes or even eliminates fear. And so, it's just a critical piece of the business.
Yeah.
One
Well,
other thing I'll
100%.
mention, one other thing I'll mention that's super important in what's coming is your peer group. You show me your two best friends, I'll show you who you are, every aspect of your
Yep.
life, your happiness, your
100%.
health, your finances, everything. And, you've heard that, you are the people you hang out with. You absolutely are. And what's sad is a lot of people default to people they work with or people they went to school with instead of proactively choosing their peers. And, I mentioned my warriors, my coaching students own over 100,000 doors, and most of those were done between warriors. And, so get into a group that will support you. A rising tide lifts all ships. I remember when I was losing everything in 08, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership, which is his high level mastermind. At the time, it was like 130 grand all in. It's, I think 3 times that now. But I was around people that were thriving through the crash. Okay. They were like killing it. And they're like 50 million, schmillion, you puss, get up and go make things happen. That's who you want to be around in what's coming, not the ones that are scared out of their fear or their jealousy or their fear of losing you or fear of being humiliated if you're successful. And sometimes it's family. I'm going to tell you, love your family, but choose your peers proactively. Super
Oh,
important as well,
100%.
especially in what's coming.
It's
Oh,
actually more
absolutely.
family than
Absolutely.
it is actually your friends or your peers. Those are usually the
Can be.
first ones that can actually be the ones who are supporting more negativity and more instilling more fear than it is to more bringing you up. Again, I can see it
Yeah.
because your family love you and they just want you to be good. But then again, there's also that balance of, yeah, I also want to be uplifted as well. I don't want you to just keep me in a shell where I can't grow out of this.
Or they're fearful,
Yeah. Oh,
like I
yeah, of
remember
course.
my stepdad worked for Continental Airlines and he used to tell me, go get a real job. And he worked for him for 36 years, loved that company. In fact, I don't know if you remember the planes, they had the gold tail and you could see them
Yeah.
when they were flying by. And as kids, he made us put our hands over our hearts as a joke when they were flying by. He loved that company and he got laid off 36 freaking years. He
Wow.
used to tell me, I'm going to have a retirement. You know how much my mom gets from his retirement? Or got, she just passed a few months ago.
I'm sorry.
$697. That's how much she gets a month. Yeah, from his 36 years at
Wow.
Continental Airlines. So anyway,
Damn.
just yeah. So, people think, oh, I've got job security. The only job security is right here between your freaking ears. That's
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
you're
Your
your
ability
biggest
to take
asset.
action.
You're
Oh,
your biggest
absolutely.
asset. And I think in
Absolutely.
today's era of where we live in an information world where you can go out and educate yourself in free platforms, people need
Sure.
to take advantage of that because you're your biggest asset. Because if something happens in your 9 to 5, what are you gonna do? What kind of value can you bring to
Pick a
go out
side
and continue
hustle.
to thrive? Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Pick a
100%.
freaking
Yeah.
side hustle. That's why I said, it doesn't matter what the vehicle is.
Mhm.
But you need to, if it could be who knows? Maybe it won't be as bad as I think it could be. Robert Kiyosaki says it's going to be horrible. Trump, love him or hate him, said it could be as bad as the Great Depression. Elon Musk on YouTube said they're lying to you. It's going to be a bigger crash than they said. So, I mean, there's big hitters saying it's going to be ugly. It may not be, but the point is, if you're focused on the positive and you're taking action, you don't get sucked into the fear. It could be the greatest transfer of wealth in history. And if it is, and you're ready
100%.
and you've learned a vehicle, you could be setting up yourself for your kids, their kids, their kids, and their
Oh,
kids, right? So,
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And not to have a shameful plug for us, that's exactly why
Yeah.
we're launching a fund, this exact
Love it.
time because
Love it.
we are exactly practicing that mentality because we think there's opportunities on the horizon that are going to be unprecedented in the next,
Right.
few quarters. And that's exactly why we're doing our fund. I'm going to transition a bit back to something to a time that you met, right after 2008, where you had that big crash, you lost a crap load of money, you kept your mind in the game, and then obviously came back from that to become the success you are today. What was that period like? Like from 2008, 9 until let's call it
Well, it
2016,
sucked. Okay.
17.
It was no fun.
Of
Okay. It
course it
was no fun
sucked.
at all because I thought I was set for life. But here's the thing. It's the same stuff that I just talked about. I got around the right people. I reassociated with my goals. I recognized that life is about meaning. And I could be the guy that lost 50 million and have that be my story and my identity, rather than using it to teach, which is what I use it for now. And I placed a different meaning on what happened. I basically recognized that I would never have met my wife if it hadn't happened. And, she's supermodel beautiful, more beautiful on the inside than the outside. And I'd give it all up again for her. And that's a true statement. So, life is about meaning. And if you're listening, if you've had something bad happen to you, recognize that you choose the meaning you place on it. Two people can have the same seemingly from the outside appearances, horrific thing happen to them. One can come out stronger and the other one can be destroyed. So, it's very, very important that you place a positive meaning on anything that's happened to you that might be disempowering. But it was all those things, reassociating with what I wanted, rebuilding that hunger, being around the right people, making a decision, taking action, and then just not giving up, having grit and persistence and determination and, tenacity and, bravery and backbone and courage and resolve and just all these things to not give up. And because, like, you've gotten your butt kicked like I have numerous times.
Yeah.
I call them
Yeah.
seminars. They're never failures. They're seminars. If you have a lesson, and you don't even know this. I've
That's a good
built
way to put it.
27 businesses in my career. I built 27 businesses, several worth tens of millions of dollars. Most spectacular flaming seminars, right? We fail our way to success. And I like an entrepreneur. You only die if you stop. Your entrepreneur is like a shark. You only die if you stop swimming, right? And I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx at a mastermind that I was in, Sarah Blakely. She, the women's undergarments that hold it all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
started with
Yeah. She's
$5,000,
great.
and beautiful human being, by the way. But she was in Forbes. She's worth over $1 billion now. But she told me that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, "What have you failed at this week?" And I thought, what an awesome freaking question to
That is
ask your kids so they
amazing.
don't fear
That
failure.
is a great
You know,
question. That is a great
yeah,
question.
don't fear
Yeah,
regret,
because
guys. If you're listening, don't fear regret. There was this nurse in Australia, a hospice nurse. So she took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked them a question. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. Okay.
yeah,
So again, don't fear failure. Fear being in the same freaking place you are right now a year from now, unless you absolutely love where you are right now. That's what I would tell you to fear.
that's
Yeah.
that what
Yeah.
if
No.
regret. Like what if I
Oh,
would have done this?
100%.
What if I would have done that? And that's probably the biggest thing that would eat up anybody at their deathbed is, man, I wish I could have done this. Or what if I would have done this the other way? Yeah. And
Well, also
that's
the
I
biggest
totally
thing
agree
with
with
people
that.
is that they always think it's too late. No matter what stage of life, they always think like, oh my, well,
Right.
I
I'm
missed
30,
the
it's too
train.
late. Oh, I'm 40,
Yeah.
it's too late. Oh, I'm 45, it's too late. Oh, I'm 50, it's too late. It's never too freaking late. I mean, it's not.
Well,
It's
just point
and
at KFC, Colonel Sanders. I
Yep.
mean, just I
Turned
mean,
down
it's the truth.
1,100 times. Turned down 1,100 times.
yeah.
Dyson tried to do his vacuum and failed like almost 8,000 times. Now he's worth like 8 billion. Oprah Winfrey got fired from TV jobs. They said she'd never be, in TV.
Said he
Bono,
didn't
you
have
too. You
yeah.
too got turned down from a freaking record label. How'd you like to be that freaking record label? You know, you know. I've
Yeah.
got this sign on my desk from Winston Churchill that says "Never, ever, ever give up."
Yeah, I love that
That
quote.
is
I
awesome.
love
And
that quote.
that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line is you don't give up. So
Which all
anyway,
comes
Yeah,
down to
that
the
is.
mindset that you mentioned earlier, the mindset and the psychology that you need to have. Doesn't matter whether if it's in career, sports, or anything, even just in your family, at your home, you need to have that mindset and psychology and that commitment to be
relationships,
able. It
your
comes with everything.
business, yeah, everything.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
would love to mention one more thing,
Yeah.
and that is, the emotion of gratitude. Honestly, there's no more powerful emotion available to us. It strengthens our immune system, lowers our blood pressure, makes our heart stronger, brings us closer to our spirituality. And you can use it to manifest anything you want in life. You can't see the recline. Well, you can kind of see the top of the recliner behind me. You don't see the vision boards next to it. But every morning I'll do gratitude for the things that I have, my beautiful wife, my kids, my foundation, my coaching students, but then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. I'll even get emotional sometimes being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And I know I lost some of you analytical ones on this, but ignore it at your peril. This is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back, okay? Because it works. But I want to share one last thing about this. When I lived in Denver, I knew I always wanted to live on the beach. And so I would visualize, palm trees and sand and surf. And 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot house on the beach. I owned the beach on one side. I had my boats on the backside. The house was magnificent. I mean, giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. Pool was in magazines. It was so spectacular. I had a big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house, wine cellar, elevator. I'll land the plane with this. On the second floor, I had aquariums that wrapped around the spiral staircase, cost me almost 200 grand. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, I worked for this thing for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, 2 months, I'm floating in the pool at night. It's changing color. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was to prove the world I was good enough. And my family was inside sleeping and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I mean, I got really depressed. And so I want to share this because there's a lesson in this. And there's several actually. The first is you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. That's number one, because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for the future. And I didn't know what I was going to do
100%.
next. So that's number one. Number two is it's never about the goals. You got to have them to create that burning desire. But, they say that happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat, right? So it's never about the goals, but you need them. Happiness comes from progress and growth, okay? And you've got to acknowledge your progress and growth for happiness. But the big piece was I'd been totally focused on me. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. Rod, rod, rod. Well, when I got depressed, I went out and bought a bunch of books and, I'm going to get myself back. And one of them was Tony Robbins' book. And I really liked what I read. And I went and saw him live 22 years ago. And I found that I saw that he feeds families for the holidays. And I was like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be, 40 to get that memo. But I went home and I called my brother in Denver, who I was visiting for Thanksgiving. I said, bro, let's feed 5 families for Thanksgiving. And so he called his church and found 5 families that really needed help. And the third family changed my life. We went up to this crappy 1-bedroom, wasn't even a 1-bedroom. You had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. There was a woman there, Latin American woman with 5 kids. And she comes out and she sees, and we bought toys for the kids and frozen turkey. And just loaded the porch with stuff. She saw all this and she started crying. Her kids came out. The older one started crying. Rod started crying. And I was hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 22 years, we have fed over 135,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida. And and there's a message here. This is not me, my ego talking here. We've done, tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids that don't even have the basic supplies for school. Don't get me started on that. And then, tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for officers to keep in their vehicles if they encounter a child that's been traumatized. And the reason I bring this up is, we've been taught to believe we have to succeed to be happy, like achieve to be happy, like we shouldn't be happy until we've achieved. I'm going to tell you, and Tony Robbins talks about this, is when you're giving back, you're happily achieving. Okay. And I know it's a play on words. He calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. If you want to learn multifamily, come to my freaking boot camp. I'll give you the blueprint. You just have to go do it. Okay. And that's it. But fulfillment's an art. You have to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals or the environment or elderly, whatever it is. But give back right now. Now, I know you do, John, and I'm sure you do as well, Francisco. But I'm talking to those of you listening because, you might be sitting here listening and going, yeah, well, you had a lot of money. So, when I have money, I'll do it. No, do it right now. Give of your time. Why? Because the freaking money will come faster. That's the way God and the universe work. Okay. Whatever you believe, that's just how it works. But you'll also be fulfilled and you'll be happy. I
Oh,
get people on my
absolutely.
show. Yeah, I get people on my show sometimes that I, are multi-mega millionaires, and I can tell if they're like I was back then. And I feel sad for them. They may have a lot of money, but they're not truly fulfilled and happy at their core, and they haven't evolved yet. So, I want to
Yeah,
mention that.
and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be about stroking a check. It could be about just
No, it can be your
giving
time.
giving your
Time.
time,
Your
giving your
time.
attention, giving.
Yeah,
It
that's
starts with
it.
little things. There's so many different organizations out there that people can get involved in
Yep.
to give that fulfillment part of
Right.
themselves to that
Right.
do not cost money, do not cost to pay a checkbook. All it costs is their time and attention. That's it.
Yeah.
But no, that's fantastic, man.
That's amazing.
That is absolutely spot on. That is absolutely spot
And
on.
and
Couple
besides the audience, I'm sorry to cut you off, John, but even
No,
besides
that's
the
okay.
audience, even myself, I am learning a lot from him, and I'm taking all the value that you're dropping on us,
I
Rod. So I really
appreciate that,
appreciate
buddy.
it.
I appreciate that very much.
All
And
golden nuggets, man. All golden nuggets. This episode's been nothing but gold nuggets. Gold nuggets from the moment one to the moment to the end. A couple of questions for you, Rod. What scares you the most, and what makes you the happiest?
what scares me the most? Losing my wife. Probably the biggest fear that I have. When you love somebody that totally and completely. I don't stay there at all, but stuff like that pops up. My kids, gosh, I told you what I just went through. So,
Yeah,
there's that. But what makes me the happiest? I can show you on the wall behind me. You can see all the hundreds of thank you cards. You can't even see them all. The whole wall,
yeah. Oh wow.
covered with,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
that
that's
is a lot of
And,
thank you
amazing.
cards.
and so, and this is not ego, please know this, but I get love typically at least 5 times a day. I get a DM, I get an email, I get a gift, I get these cards of people whose lives have been impacted. Just yesterday, somebody emailed me and said they quit their W-2 and from their income cash flow from real estate, and it's addictive, man, and so it makes me happy as hell. So, people think, oh
That's
yeah,
awesome.
you're a guru. You're just trying to sell us on your stuff. No, I freaking love this. That's why my boot camp's freaking $97. Okay. So, I just bought a $33 million asset last week. That's where I make my money.
Congratulations.
But
Yeah.
That's
yeah, no,
awesome.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
No, that's the irony about that is people are always going to say whatever they're going to say,
yeah,
but clearly you love what you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be successful at it. Because if you didn't love what you do, and it goes back to what we just said earlier on the show, if you love what you do, it's never it's never like having to be forced to do anything.
you
So
never
you're
work another day in your life.
no,
You freaking, yeah, it's incredible. And I do. And so I'm blessed. And, I feel sorry for the people in the grind that don't pull themselves up by them bootstraps and find that side hustle. You've got to be willing to grind for a few years like most people won't, and then you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. But
yeah,
you got to push through that fear and take that first step and make it
a
happen.
hundred percent.
And I really think opportunities upon us, guys. So if you're listening, for God's sakes, take note and go learn something that you can use to capitalize on what's coming. So,
Yeah, and
Absolutely,
selfish plug
absolutely.
here on our side, and it's because, again, like John mentioned, we're raising this fund for that specific reason, not because of the
yeah.
market conditions, but because the market conditions are the way they are. We see a ton of opportunity coming. So if you want to learn more, you can reach out to us and learn more about the fund. But
I
Rod,
want
I
to learn
do.
more. I want to learn more. So we'll have a
Oh, you're
conversation about that
we'll send you the
offline.
details, brother.
Oh,
All right,
don't
please.
worry. You're getting the
Yeah.
whole package.
All
You
right.
know.
All right.
So
What's
Rod, I know you.
Francisco? You want
Yeah, I have.
to get us into the fast questions that you normally do?
Yeah. So Rod, is just kind of like a little small fire round of questions that we ask you. So, but I know you've learned a whole lot from all your entire career, from your life, and even from everything that you're doing today. But what's one thing that you learned that has been the hardest for you to unlearn?
Hardest to unlearn. Oh, what an interesting question. Shutting it off, really. It's shutting it off. I'm starting to realize that I need to be looking at through life through a lifestyle filter and traveling more and enjoying my life outside of work more. Okay. And, my wife is supermodel beautiful. And it's like, what are you thinking here? You need to be with her. We just went to Europe a few weeks ago for 3 weeks actually. And going to Belize next week, and then Tulum after that, and then Japan.
Nice.
And I want to do more of
Amazing.
that. Okay. So I need to unlearn I need to unlearn or really learn to shut it off and walk away, earlier in the evening and so on and so forth. But again, I love it, so that's why she puts up with it. But I don't know if
Well,
that's
I
the
Well,
tell
a
you,
right.
guy who's
it sounds
going
like
at you.
it sounds like you got some good learning experiences coming up. And speaking of learning,
Look, and I
uh,
see it with John too all the time. I mean, like at times, we need to take the foot off the pedal sometimes for us to kind of just reset and just disconnect from the world. Just
Yep.
whether that's with family, that's with your wife, going out. We need that for us to
That's a good
reset,
way
and
to
that's
describe it.
yeah,
It's a reset. Yeah, for sure. That's a good way to
yeah.
describe it.
yeah, and we're very bad at it. I mean, I know you are as well as I am. I'm very very bad at it.
We're
Because
momentum
we
guys.
can't
So you want to just
we're
continue with it.
guys, and we can't unplug. Like it's not easy for us to unplug and just say, screw it. I'm just going to leave
It it
this
takes
little device
3 days.
behind.
It takes 3 days when I go on vacation. Literally, but it's the third day. Okay, and then she's like, "Okay, I think I've got you now." Yeah, it takes 3 days. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not
Look,
exaggerating.
we're all guilty of it. Even when we're away, your mind is still in work mode. But you have to kind of ease your way into it. Like, okay, now I need to kind of disconnect a bit. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. John, you got a
Uh,
question?
yeah, I was just gonna. Well, yeah. If you have another rapid fire question, my question is kind of like an ending off question. So if you have another one,
Yeah,
go
that's fine.
for it.
No, yeah,
Otherwise,
that's
I'll
fine.
ask
Go for it.
mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question, Rod, is what is next for Rod? What is the next challenge that you're pushing yourself through?
Well, on a micro level, I'm creating a course on raising capital. So I'm doing that, writing a book about that. So that's on a micro level. But really, it's slowing things down a little bit.
Yeah,
And I'm 62. Time to enjoy life more than I'm already enjoying it. And much as I love work, I'd much rather be, with my bride doing something else with her. So spending time with her. So it really, from a business standpoint, I plan to capitalize on what's coming. I'm in a lot of cash right now, killing me because of inflation when we started on that. But and then they print another trillion for student loan. Anyway, don't get me going. But anyway, so it's buying assets. I'm really gearing up to do that.
Good.
I love your fund idea. It's brilliant, and I think it's really
Thank you.
smart and timely. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
No,
much.
that's awesome. That's great. Well, to wrap things up, again, I think you gave the audience how to get a hold of you. I think you said, what did you say? I'm sorry.
Rod's links. Rod's links has all kinds of free resources. There's free books there. There's my best-selling number one best-selling book that I still give away for free if you pay the shipping. I don't know if you can see it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lifetime
That's
cash
awesome.
flow.
Lifetime cash
Rave
flow.
reviews.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I've never had a negative comment about this book. Thousands of copies. I've given away probably close to 30,000-40,000 copies at this point.
That's amazing.
But a lot of free resources at Rod's list. And then again, my boot camp, text my name Rod to 72345. It's $97. And I don't sell anything there for 2 full days of training, kind of a no-brainer. And again, if the price has gone up, DM me on any social channel. I literally, if I don't monitor it, my team does, you will get taken care of. And if you've ever got a question, well, you can ask these boys here for the question as well. But you're certainly welcome to ask me as well. Let me say that. Yeah, we're in the same
Amazing.
house.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Rod,
Rod.
thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, man. It's great
no.
to see you, John. I really would love to stay more connected than we have.
I would love that. I would love
100%.
that. I need to come visit you down in your Shangri-La. So
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Charlotte, in the Carolinas.
Charlotte. Oh God, I was just there for that thing I was telling you about with Jocko and darn it. I'm sorry I missed you while I was there.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. Next time you're in town, I would love to break bread with you. Otherwise, I will make a point to come down to your neck of the woods and break bread with you personally. So
Anytime, man. Anytime.
would
All right,
love that.
guys.
Thank you
Thank you
again.
so much.
Thanks so
Meet you,
much.
friends.
It's a
Thanks, guys.
pleasure to have you on.